In my review of the first Heroes Reborn, I said that one of the problems with the story is that we don't know why the timeline has changed. We don't know who's behind it, or why they're behind it, or why the world needs to have the Squadron Supreme in charge instead of the Avengers. Well, we're 3 issues into the series, plus we've had a couple specials, and we still don't know. And I feel like this really is a problem with this series. Because 1, we still don't know why it's an altered timeline as opposed to a parallel universe. And 2, it doesn't really seem like this new world is a problem. Now, we've got pissed off Captain America, who's running around with Blade, and popping up occasionally in the background at the end of the last few issues, just to show their dissatisfaction with the world around them. But honestly, for the most part, this world seems fine. If Captain America and Blade really feel like this world needs to be reverted back, then we need some reason to root for the change. And so far they haven't really done anything to show us why that needs to happen. Now yes, we've seen in the Peter Parker special that Aunt May has died, Peter ends up sacrificing himself, but those are stories that could happen in a alternate version of the Marvel Universe where we still get a Miles Morales, we can still get a Spider-Man character, and that wouldn't really be a problem for most people. So I don't think that book really sold me on the idea that having the Squadron Supreme in charge is really a problem. I think one of the other problems that we have with the story is that Jason Aaron really doesn't know what to do with the Justice League type characters that come in the Squadron Supreme. In the Marvel Universe, most of those characters are more down to earth. They tend to be enhanced humans who have somehow gained some sort of special ability or magical powers that allow them to become greater than who they were. In the DC universe, we deal with a lot more iconic type characters, archetypes of heroes. Characters like Wonder Woman and Superman. They're heroes because they just intrinsically are. And a writer like Jason Aaron seems to have a problem figuring out what to do with a character like that. So he doesn't really know how to work with Hyperion, and we've seen that in the first 2 issues. In this 3rd issue, we get a spotlight on Blur, who's basically the Flash. And as the Flash, he can run super fast. He's more like Wally West than Barry Allen. And he's like the version of Wally West before he got married. So he's a little more rash, a little more impulsive, but he's still a hero. And there's really not a problem with the way he acts as a hero. So again, in this story, I'm not really seeing a reason why this universe needs to go away and the old Marvel universe to come back. In fact, considering some of the things that Marvel has done with their characters in the last decade, I kind of like this universe more. We get 2 stories in this issue, and the first one has artwork by Federico Vincentini with colors by Matt Milla? Maybe? I don't know. I'm terrible with names. And the backup story with the regular artwork by Ed McGuinness, inked by Mark Morales, and the colors by Matthew Wilson. Now, I really like Vincentini's artwork. I saw him most recently in the Falcon and Winter Soldier miniseries that just wrapped up last year. It's fantastic. It's an angular, very stylistic version of classic comic book artwork, and I enjoy it quite a bit. And I was very happy to see that he was the one doing the artwork on the story, since I'm not the biggest fan of Ed McGuinness. However, the Ed McGuinness backup story, I think for the most part was fine, except once again for his depictions of Captain America. It still doesn't look right to me. But for the most part, the artwork in this, overall, is great. Matthew Wilson I have seen before as a colorist, and I've been very impressed with his work in other books. And again, I think he does a good job in this book. But Matt Mila, or Mia, or however it's pronounced, also does a really good job on the main story. His artwork isn't flashy like some of the modern colorists are. It's a much more muted palette of colors, but I think it really works, especially with a character like Blur, who, because of his abilities of being super fast, is often shown as being, well, a blur. And if the colors were too bright and too vivid and too overpowering, he'd probably look more like the Smear. But I think the muted color tone, along with Vincentini's artwork, is a really great combination for this issue. And I found myself really enjoying reading this issue. Again, I wish the story had a little bit more going on, but at least the artwork was great. As far as value goes with this comic, you get 25 pages of story for $4.99. Now, the normal comic would be about 20 pages for $3.99, so you're getting an extra 5 pages for $1. That's not really enough, but it's okay. It's not highway robbery. Although this is Marvel, they should be able to cut a better deal than that on their comics, so I do feel like it's a bit overpriced. However, this is the middle of the miniseries, so they know that if you're reading this, they've got you locked in. You've already bought 1 and 2, you're probably going to write out the entire series, so by now it doesn't really matter what they're charging and how many pages, because you're more than likely going to keep buying. And it's a shame, really. One of the biggest issues, though, with this as far as value would be the intrinsic value to the overall story, and I'm not sure where that's to be found. If you watched closely in my review of the first issue, I did show one of the variant covers that has Mephisto, who is the, well, let's say the devil of the Marvel Universe. And it seems as if he's somehow involved in the story. Most likely, he's the reason why this universe is different. The timeline has changed because Mephisto has done something, made a deal with somebody, or for some reason has decided to screw with reality in order to change it to this version of the Marvel Universe. But none of that has come through in the story. Here we are in the 3rd issue, and really what we have is almost as if you took an issue of Blur out of his regular ongoing series, plucked it out of the lineup of some fictional comic book, ongoing series, and presented it to a new universe of readers. And this kind of goes back to the problem that I brought up in the first segment of this review when I was talking about the story. I don't see why these heroes are a problem. Blur acts heroic. He does save the day. He minimizes the danger to others. He forces the villain, in this case the Silver Witch, to focus on him and attack him and not put anyone else in danger. And it puts his own life in danger, and he almost dies from it, and he's able to overcome it and reverse the effects of her powers and put her away. So he does the hero's job. He seems fine. So again, I don't see why this universe has to change. In fact, when we see Captain America and Blade at the end, when they pop in for their cameo at the end of this issue, they seem more like just bitter old men who are angry that their universe is gone. And if I were to myself make a vote on whether or not to keep this universe or go back to the current Marvel universe that everyone has been used to for the last several years, I would keep this alternate universe. I like these heroes more than the ones that we've been getting from Marvel lately. Now, I know some of you are going to disagree with that, and that's fine. But honestly, that's how I look at this series. This series is failing to show how the Squadron Supreme is bad for the Marvel Universe, and that this change needs to be fixed.